before we get into kind of the meat of this episode, one of the things that's weird structurally is this episode has a cold open.
Yeah.
And then after a minute and a half, jumps into the standard intro. Well, minus the hi, I'm Chris.
Yeah.
We don't get Chris at the beginning, but we do have like minute and a half of them out camping, cut to the theme song, and then with the teaser and everything, and then we jump back in. Which is interesting. There's not...
It might have to do with like this, like I feel like it was a conscious decision by them, like the sound engineers, to kind of create that sort of immersive effect, because it really does feel like the sound design on this is really good, and that like it does feel like you can hear them in the woods, and like you can, at least for me, maybe it's just because I've heard it so many times, but to like imagine what's happening is pretty easy, and that could be part of it. Just like getting thrown into the, you put it on or whatever, and there's you know the leaves rustling and whatever, and discussions happening. Like oh
no, I agree in general, especially talking about TV. Like I prefer cold open to, hey, we're just starting on the theme song.
Yeah, basically.
But I don't think that that's something that they ever really use. Like they use it here, but it's not like, hey, like from this album going forward, we're doing it. It's just like, no, we just decided to do it on this episode, and maybe we'll do it again. I don't know.
Which is interesting, because not only is it the cold open, it's the first track on an album.
No, it's not.
Oh,
it's like
not?
the fourth track on the album.
Oh, on Canada.
It's just the first. It's just the first Novacom one. It's the first track on a disc.
Disc 2.
Yeah. Anyways, interesting structural decision.
For sure.
Oh, hi there. Welcome to the pod. I'm Dylan James Weaver, but most folks around here just call me Dylan. Why don't you get the whole family together and join us for another exciting episode of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. It's the first, but it's the B-side of cassette 2.
Oh, I had a CD for this one.
I know, but you do, cassettes have one episode per side.
Okay.
But CDs have 3 episodes per disc.
I'm really glad that you've done this math in your head, because I tried to and I couldn't.
Alright. That's why there's 6 cassettes, but 4 discs.
That tracks.
Yeah, I know. I'm blowing Andrew's mind.
I've never really compared that. Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
I'm Andrew Sabo.
And today we are talking about episode 478 of Adventures in Odyssey, entitled Strange Boy in a Strange Land.
Yeah, I didn't think about the title until you said it. It is a very dramatic title.
It's very dramatic, and I mean, assumedly, Jared's the strange boy in the strange land, but the strange land is the middle of the woods?
Yeah, and it's also like, which the premise for the episode is that 2 presumably middle schoolers are camping alone for a weekend in the woods.
Oh yeah.
Completely alone.
Yeah.
And it's like is it pretty close to Mandy's house? Is that where they're camping?
I don't think so. They go out of their way on so many occasions to say that they're not in Odyssey.
Yeah.
So they've got to be pretty far out.
Yeah.
We'll cross more of that when we get to it. But the title is assumedly an allusion to Stranger in a Strange Land.
What is that again?
It's like a sci-fi book that came out in like the 60s.
That would make sense. That ties in with their references.
Yeah.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a weird reference, but I assume that's what it is, but there's no connection that I can come up with, and so it seems like it's an odd choice to be like, let's make reference to this thing, and then, all right,
just kind of leave it at that, I guess. So is this the final episode? Oh no, this is the first episode.
This is the first episode we're doing off counter moves.
Yeah, I'm so happy. I love this album. This is my jam. This is the one that I owned and listened to a bunch. And went to the trouble of burning onto my iPod Nano in like 2011, which does not feel like only 7 years ago, but it was. And I've heard this episode so many times, which is great.
It's a good one.
I get some very, very strong nostalgia coming back to it.
Mm-hmm. So let's listen to the promo.
On the next Adventures in Odyssey.
Forget Odyssey. Don't even talk about it. We drove for hours to get away from Odyssey.
A camping trip, a getaway, and a strange boy.
I think he ducked behind that tree. Mandy, there's someone up in a tree watching us with night vision goggles at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Who else could it be?
Who is this boy, and what does he want? Find out on the next Adventures in Odyssey.
That's some interesting music.
Yeah, it's weird because like Odyssey is so well scored in general, and then I feel like anytime they do a promo, the audio is just all, like the score is all over the place.
Yeah, well, and like also I feel like the score was too long for how short what they had to say was.
It always has like 10 seconds on the end.
There's like, oh, huh,
But yeah, there's basically nothing in that promo.
which is nice, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining.
I feel like that's what it should be.
Yeah.
And also the idea that the narrator is like, who is this? But the guys or the girls in the promo clearly know who it is.
Right.
like oh,
Yeah.
That seems a bit odd, but okay.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. It's a good deal.
That is interesting. It's weird though to hear promos for it and like think of it like it's an actual radio show, even though like I never really listened to Odyssey on the radio. Like I've only listened to it on live radio like probably 3 or 4 times. In my life,
probably the same for me.
So like to have the idea that they have promos and don't just exist in albums is very weird for me.
Yeah. Okay, so like Andrew alluded to, you said it already.
Explicitly stated.
Mandy, who hasn't appeared yet in this series as far as I know,
Yeah, I don't think so. Nothing.
and Sarah, who also hasn't, are both here. They're
Yeah.
camping, not in Odyssey.
Very clear about that.
Just on their own.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, cool.
I guess. And they said they drove for hours, meaning their parents
Dropped them off.
Yeah, dropped them
in the
off in the
middle of
middle of the
nowhere.
woods, and they're like, "Okay, bye, see you on Sunday."
Yeah.
Which I guess
In a time
is-
before in a time with cell phones that these kids definitely don't have.
Yeah, no, they were definitely just out there, like with no means of communication. Because even if they had cell phones, what are the odds that they actually have cell service?
Good point.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
That is probably the hardest part about this episode, like logistically for me to get my head around is like conservative parents just dropping their kids off in the middle of the woods, being like, "You're just two, middle school girls in the woods for 3 days." Maybe it's just an overnighter, maybe. But I'm
No,
getting
it's multiple days.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Friday to Sunday
We
situation.
definitely have multiple days
Yeah.
worth of them being out there. And yeah, it is a thing of like it wouldn't stand out as much except that this is Adventures in Odyssey from Focus on the Family.
Yeah.
And it seems like the kind of sort. It seems like the kind of thing that
I could have sworn you were gonna say Kindosaurus, and I was like, "Wow,
the Kindosaurus.
my favorite character in The Good Dinosaur." Okay,
I hate that so much.
I hate it too. I'm sorry. Okay, moving on.
It's the kind of thing that seems like parents would write in and complain about.
Yeah, for sure. And also, just like anybody with half a brain would realize, maybe that's a bad idea.
Yeah. But also it's Odyssey and, despite it being the crime capital of the world,
Yeah.
it's perfectly safe.
Yeah, of course.
There are spies and computer hackers around every corner, but it's safe.
Corporate espionage. And also, wait, we've established we're 2 hours outside of Odyssey. At least. They said we drove for hours.
Yep. Multiples.
So, yeah.
More than one.
So there you go. Unless she's just, hyperbolizing. But
Yeah. So part of my research deep dive this episode is at the time, like when this aired, the actors. So the actors of the kids in this episode are 13 to 15.
okay.
So that puts them squarely like 8th or 9th grade.
Yeah, and that seems about right as far as like how they act and stuff. And
Yeah.
I could see like maybe if they weren't that far away, like
Right.
ninth graders could do it.
Right. Because I'm thinking about, I have a younger
Yeah.
brother who is that age.
Yeah.
And he'll go and sleep on out in the fort, which
Yeah.
is distance from the house.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, you have no idea what's going on out there. But it's not the same as dropping somebody off in the middle of the woods, saying,
Leaving them.
see you later.
Yeah.
And going home. Like, what food are they preparing for themselves?
Presumably, it's only stated that they brought marshmallows. That's all we
Yeah.
know that they brought. But they don't talk about eating, so maybe they just don't.
Yeah.
Maybe Whit told them that, they went on a imagination station adventure about fasting and stuff. And
yeah.
We'll just do that.
Fast in the woods. Just marshmallows. That's my cheat.
Yeah.
Back to the actual plot. We have a guy spying on them. Or no, Mandy thinks she sees a guy.
In a blue windbreaker.
Yep. Sarah says, "You sure that's not a bear?"
Yeah.
She said it was wearing a windbreaker. They, I guess, walk off in that direction looking for him. Mm-hmm. He crawls up into a tree.
Yes.
They then make squirrel noises.
Yes.
They then realize that, and Mandy even seeing him. Oh, that's right. Mandy seeing him thinks that he's Jared.
Yeah. Yeah, she recognizes like that in the first place, and then you get the whole situation where he's spying on them with night vision goggles
In the day.
during the day.
Yeah. But yeah. So he's there. They see him. Mandy's like, "I think that's Jared." Sarah's like, "How can you tell?" Mandy's like, "Well, you see, when he was running, he was kind of lurching forward." And then Sarah says that lurching is common in crazy people.
Yep. Yeah, I do remember that.
So they run over. They're looking for him. Find him in a tree. He makes squirrel noises.
Yeah.
Sarah. Okay. So this whole time, Mandy's like, "I think it's Jared," and Sarah's like, "It's probably not Jared." Da, 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 and like they go back and forth for a while, and then they finally find him, and all of a sudden Sarah yells, "It's Jared, let's get him." And Mandy's like, maybe it's not Jared, like, should we go after him? And I'm like, did you guys read the wrong parts in the script?
Yeah.
Like, I know that character wise Mandy's timid and Sarah's more brash, but
that's definitely a reverse of what was happening.
like, yeah, it's the exact opposite of what they have been doing,
Yeah.
which is really weird. And
so they get him, right?
he's up in the tree making squirrel noises. He also says "No hablo inglés."
Yep, that does happen. Yeah.
He drops out of the tree, takes off running.
Yeah.
They follow him, and then
Is that when they end up in the cave?
They end up in the cave talking to him.
Which is important. So they chase him into a cave, and again, these are middle schoolers chasing some guy through the woods. We don't know how far.
Yeah, how do they not get lost? But also, they for sure know it's him at this point, so there's at least that.
Yeah, and then they end up in this secret cave, Jared's secret cave, in which he has a bunch of stuff, spy equipment, and a bed, a second bed, which, as a youth, when I listened to this, I imagined my bed, and imagining how out of place it would look to have like a wood bed frame and a box spring and a mattress in a cave.
Right.
And like, also, how did he get it out there?
Right. Because we'll touch on this later, but he cut a hole in a chain link fence to get out there. Where did he get a second bed? How did he drag it out there? Did he just find a bed in the woods? In which case, no.
Yeah, I don't want that. It's definitely
Or maybe like bed, they just mean like he has a sleeping bag there.
Yeah, and that could be it.
But they say bed.
But they say bed, and like, again, I completely just believe them and think, oh yeah, there's just a bed in this cave with a bunch of spy gear.
Yep.
And it's kind of like his second room. But also what?
Yeah.
Logistically, that just does not check out.
Yep. Can we take a moment to just fill in who Jared is? Because I've got some fun stuff. So Jared before was just one of the kids in the town, same age as Mandy and Sarah and Liz and the rest of the kids of kind of this generation of Odyssey.
Yeah.
Even though Mandy's been around longer. But he was the paranoid conspiracy theorist. Like, that has always been his character. He's similar in a lot of ways to Cal. Mm-hmm. I was noticing listening to this where I was like, oh, there's a lot of stuff here that like Cal that would also fit Cal's character.
Yeah.
So he had rather abruptly left the show 2 years prior to this.
Was there a specific like outside of the show reason?
So the voice actor Brandon Gilberstadt left the show to take a lead role on a show on Nick.
Oh.
So he got a lead role on a Nickelodeon show.
Okay.
Which I'm going to read the description of because it's bonkers.
Is that what it's called? It's bonkers?
No.
Dang it.
The show is called 100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd.
Okay.
Only the 90 kids will remember.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm younger than this show, and
Yep. Yeah, I don't remember that.
But here's the premise. 100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd stars a schoolboy who got turned into a dog by a drifter for being a bad kid. He then ends up in the pound where he is adopted by the last kid he bullied. From there, Eddie McDowd has to perform 100 good deeds in order to become a kid again.
What a terrifying premise for a show. That is some twisted crap.
It's so nuts.
That's terrible. Oh no, why? But why?
It's so weird.
Oh, yeah.
And so
also, that would not work today.
no. So Brandon Gilberstadt plays the kid who was bullied, who then adopts the dog Eddie McDowd.
Oh.
And so it ran for 3 seasons
Wow.
from 98 to 2001.
Okay.
And then after it wrapped, he came back to play Jared in
Okay.
the Novacom saga.
Well, thank goodness he came back.
So Jared just shows up in the woods, and yeah, it's so weird how real life events in like with this actor tie to like the brilliant move they made with his character.
Yeah,
he was this
bringing it
paranoid conspiracy theorist who disappeared because the actor got another gig. The actor's gig finishes up. He comes back on. They're in the middle of Novacom.
So he can totally come back and be like this really good
And
role.
so they bring him back in and make him like a major player.
Yeah. Which is like actually just a complete, like, that's a gold mine. That's such a good move.
Yeah, I don't know how it was pulled off, but it's awesome.
And he's like, okay, so like as one of the kids from Wits End, like I really do like Jared as a character. Of all the episodes that I remember, and like they go back through a little bit at the end of the episode.
Yep.
Which we'll get to later. But like just remembering, like he's actually just a really funny character, and he has been around for a hot moment, and like that's it's cool that they were able to bring him back in this way, and then like incorporate him in such a major way, you know.
So Mandy and Sarah and Jared are in this cave, and Jared's kind of dodging explaining things.
Yeah.
He's like, he makes a comment of like, how'd you find me? And they're like, you found us. You were the one spying on us. And then he says, of all the patches of woods in the world, you just happened to walk into mine?
Yeah, that does happen. And also, like, it is kind of a huge coincidence. Like, how the heck did they end up in the same place?
Right. It's called lamp shading, when you take something that's a huge coincidence or something bizarre and just let the characters say that, and then you're like, and now we don't have to deal with how weird it is because they acknowledged it too. So
Lazy writing.
yeah, lamp shading.
Well, and like I suppose, but also like the woods are a big place, and like they could very much be in the same woods and never see each other.
So yeah, Jared's kind of convinced that they're there for him. They're not there for him.
The girls kind of just move on.
Yeah. Is there like, he's like showing them around this cave with a bed and all this stuff, and he says, don't touch that. It may be radioactive.
Yeah. Ooh.
If it's radioactive, it doesn't matter if you
Touch
touch it.
It's just around you. And then you get the cancers.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
boy.
I know he's paranoid
And it's
whatever
not.
else. But yeah.
It's a bad thing.
Yep. All right. Then we get the absolute best score of the series so far, which is an excellent like spy theme that just like carries this. I'll drop it in the edit. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, that one's really good. I do remember that. Yeah, this episode just sticks out to me as just one that just top to bottom is really solid, really tight. It ties in really well. And I don't know why the episodes with the kids are just so much better than the other ones.
Yeah.
But they are. And
Yeah, I generally
And I don't
agree.
think it's because that they're like better written characters.
No.
Or necessarily even better voice acted. I just enjoy them more. And maybe it's just like nostalgia or whatever.
Yeah, there is something interesting about the voice acting though, because unlike most, well, most movies and cartoons with voice acting, but also most characters on this show, the kids are voiced by people who are more or less the age of the kids.
Yeah.
Which is
impressive.
Not typically the case.
Yeah.
And yeah, does make it really interesting. And it's also one of the reasons why you don't see the kids voicing a bunch of different characters throughout the show in the same way you do the adults, because they're not really voice actors in that way.
Yeah, they don't do the same
right.
thing. Yeah.
You don't need a dozen different characters being played by the voice of Jared, because, you
just don't need that many kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that maybe that is it, and maybe just as, listening to it as a kid, like, I identified with more of the kids, and so therefore I enjoy them more, but I don't know. I just enjoyed, like, you made mention of it earlier on, like, just the episodes with the kids are just better, and I was like, I think you're right, and you definitely are, and I don't know why.
And we might be proven wrong, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
We don't have hard opinions.
No, we don't.
Okay, so we go to the commercial break, come back from the commercial break. An interesting thing with this episode, too, is that there's one thread with two characters the whole episode.
Yeah, there's no, like, alternate.
We're not jumping between an A plot and a B plot. And a C. Like, it's a bottle episode.
Yeah.
And so we get Sarah and Mandy waking up in their tent, in which point Sarah gets mad at Mandy for talking in her sleep. And then Jared from outside the tent says that she snores as well.
Creepy.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And they're like, how long have you been there? And he's been like, a couple minutes. But, like, you knew she snores, so probably longer.
Yeah.
Also,
based on my small knowledge of REM cycles, probably about 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah. Also, something just to hit on more Jared backstory and whatever. Well, I guess he's not now. He was next door neighbors to Sarah. And there's a lot of, like...
I didn't remember that.
We hear some in the clips at the end, but, like, them, like, spying. Like, he has a lot of plots where it's, like, him and his buddies spying on girls.
Yep.
We're not covering those episodes.
Yeah. I never thought twice about that as a kid. I was like, oh, ha, that's what you do, I guess. That's weird. Why?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
It's all that. It's just like it's an extension of him wanting to be a spy.
Yeah.
He's also that he's just spying on the girls, but it does
not, seem
not great.
Yeah. The middle school girls alone in the woods, hours from home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ew. I feel uncomfortable.
So then they're just kind of like, we're like, what are you doing here, Jared? Get away. And he's like, well, you should. Like, I know my ways around the woods here. You should just come hang out with me.
Yeah, and he tells them about all the stuff. Like, there's a tree swing and all this stuff.
And Mandy's like, I like tree swings. And I was like, yeah, me too, Mandy.
Yeah, they're cool. I'm like, I get that.
He also,
there's a stone bridge and, like, all kinds of random stuff.
He also says, have you ever seen quicksand?
Yeah, which there's definitely not quicksand in Illinois. And, you do just get this idea that, like, Jared really is just kind of lonely, and he's just excited to see these people that he knows. And especially Sarah, who, now that you've clarified, I mean, he was next door neighbors with, like, was relatively close with, I guess. So I can totally sympathize with him in that way. And so he just kind of follows them around and shows them a bunch of stuff and whatever. And then they're kind of like, okay, well, we're gonna, go now. And then they, like, try to get an excuse, so they're like, we're going to go braid each other's hair.
Yep.
And he's like, well, can I come? And I'm like, oh my gosh.
He says, can I come? I've always been interested in hair art.
Oh, no. Which is like, that hits a little close to home, because I feel like I totally did that with girls that I had the crush on. And just being like, oh, yeah, that's something that interests me. Nope, no, not even a little bit, but I'll do it because you're cute.
You're telling me you've never braided hair, Andrew?
Never successfully. I tried braiding Grace's hair once, and it didn't go well.
Yeah. But no, that's something I think this episode does really well, is you totally get why, like, everyone's motivations are
Super clear
and relatable.
Yeah.
And nobody's, like, bad.
Yeah.
Jared wants to hang out with them because, as we'll get to later, like, he just hasn't had anybody else around to spend time with, and these are people that he used to know, and now he's like super excited for that. And Sarah and Mandy are having a weekend away, that's just the two of them, and so they don't really like, they were happy to hang out with him at the beginning, but get tired of it because they want to spend time together because that's what they're there for. And all of that is super valid.
Yeah, and like, and that's something that, you know, doesn't always happen with this show, in that like it's not always the most logical thing, and it just sometimes, you know, goes with the trope of the character or whatever. But this episode it's very just cut and dry, like. And I think that does come from it only being, like, one plot the whole episode. Like, you don't have to balance all these characters and, like, somehow give them a reason to be interested.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was just...
For sure.
It's really good. So, then Jared's, like, they want to have alone time, and then Jared doesn't want them to leave, and so he tells them...
Well...
Right? Isn't it?
Not even quite, because they first go... They actually do leave him.
Oh, okay.
And they go back and... braid hair and talk about cute teachers.
Yeah.
Which is,
also
once
weird.
again, like, really funny. I totally, like, it seems in character, but it's also one of those things that's like, I don't know. I can't figure out what the bar for what Focus on the Family will allow is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just like their agenda is very much its own thing, and they stand for what they stand for, and they're okay with what they're okay with, and it just all depends on what the writers think.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, so the writers are gonna get really pissed off about, like, violent TV shows and stuff like that, but, like,
Right.
kids crushing on teachers, they're like, oh, yeah, kids be kids, right? You know?
Yeah. And it's, I don't have strong feelings one way or the other, but
It
no,
doesn't, yeah, the line isn't clearly, like, this is above, this is below, this is taboo,
Right.
this is not, like,
Yeah.
it's not consistent.
So, anyways, I thought it was kind of a charming scene.
Yeah, for sure.
But then Jared crashes in, and that's when Sarah's basically like, look, good seeing you, but, like, get out of here.
Yeah, basically.
And so they start to walk away from him,
Yeah. Yeah.
which he's at their campsite just because, I don't know, they got to do
Logically,
something.
I guess, yeah, they have to show the movement or, you know, whatever.
And so Jared decides, he's like, okay, I'll just tell you my secret.
Yeah.
So,
And then he tells them.
Yep.
And basically it's, you know, his dad worked for, does he work for Andromeda?
He works for
he was, now,
Andromeda.
was an accountant for Andromeda. He found out about some shady stuff that the company was doing. He told the government about it. And then later he found a camera and a book in his office. And boy,
dun, dun.
did I never realize how just there are so many cameras and books all over the series.
yep.
And so now they're in the witness protection program. And now they're living in the woods. And there's barbed wire around their house that he cuts a hole through, I guess.
Okay, so two things. One, well, I don't know, maybe more than two things. First off, rule one of witness protection program, don't talk about witness protection program. Just like,
This is a bad thing.
whatever.
But, like, he's a kid, and he's also
Yeah.
alone, and, like, he probably... Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, I do totally get it.
And sympathizing, and, like, how
Yes.
lonely he was, and, like, wanting to be able to share that with somebody. Because even if he does have, like, a small amount of social interaction, like, these are people that... whatever, like, little thought he put into whether he should tell them or not, like, it checks the boxes. Like, they're away from the situation, they're whatever, and they're close enough to him that he trusts them, you know?
Yep. And then this is the first mention of a company called Andromeda.
Yes.
And that's all we're gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's laying a lot of groundwork for stuff that's going to start getting tied in together,
Yeah.
as alluded to by camera and book, which is like an example of something that means nothing to Sarah and Mandy, but a lot to you and I listening.
Yeah, because we've heard it, and we know what
Well,
happened to Whit's office,
right.
and we know,
Yeah, because we're getting... Yeah,
It
even if
isn't-
you're listening through the first time, you pick up on like, camera and a book.
Yeah.
But the thing that Tony and the office. Oh my word!
It is really like well written how that ties together. I never fully appreciated that until this go through. Yeah. So is this around the campfire?
I don't know.
That's that later.
No, wait. This is yeah, because it's their last.
Yeah.
It's their last.
The girls,
scene
however,
with
didn't
him.
believe a word. Yeah. The girls are eating marshmallows when Jared shows up again.
Right. That's what we just went over, I think.
No. So that was the first time. Then they go away and whatever, and they go off on their own again. They have a campfire later that night, and Jared shows up and he goes, "I've got some dirt on Andromeda."
Oh, that's right. He comes back with additional info to try
Yep.
and give them.
Yeah.
Gosh, he
Does not leave them alone.
Well, no. They separate and come back together like 4 times.
Even though they spend the entire episode together. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Mandy and Sarah are like
Mm-hmm.
not sure what to believe because Jared has always been this paranoid kid who kind of blows things up. So yeah, so there's a bunch of reasons why Sarah and Mandy shouldn't believe Jared.
Yeah.
Which is once again so good.
Also, can we talk about their marshmallow eating? Because they're at a campfire, they're eating marshmallows. Apparently, Mandy eats half the bag, and then she says, "Oh, but half of them, but like most of them were burnt." And so, presumably, she's eaten like 20-ish marshmallows, or has burned probably 10 to 12 marshmallows, which is so many marshmallows. And also, burnt marshmallows are delicious. I intentionally burn my marshmallows sometimes.
You're the worst person.
I know.
I mean, there are a bunch of like middle schoolers hanging out in the woods with no parental supervision.
Yeah.
Of course, they're eating a whole bag of marshmallows. Like,
Yeah. No, but I was just more taken aback at how they objected so violently towards burning marshmallows.
I am 100% with
You're like
them.
you're a golden toasted kind of
No
man.
burnt marshmallows.
I
I would
would-
rather eat a marshmallow raw than eat a burnt one.
Oh, I mean, I can see that. That makes sense because the burnt part tastes like different and weird, and it doesn't necessarily taste good. I just love how soft the inside gets.
You, sir, have a problem.
I do. It's just I can really toast a marshmallow well too. I just don't have the patience for it.
So they're talking again. He's just dishing out more information about things, trying to, get them to believe him. They're like, I don't know. At one point, I think Mandy says, I don't know what to believe. And he says, I can tell you what to believe.
Focus on the family.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
There's also a quote. I don't remember why this comes up, but Jared at one point when he's like just he's just rattling off conspiracy theories and whatever else, he says quote unquote World War II, which no, absolutely not. That is, I don't care how nuts you want this guy to seem. You don't put that in there. Just don't. We are not trivializing World War II as a conspiracy theory. Get out now.
Please and thank you. Just no.
Absolutely
Also,
not.
Nobody thinks that. Who thinks that was a conspiracy?
Just no. We're not dealing with this.
Yeah. Like I know that there are conspiracy theories around that, but like I've never heard anybody ever be like, yeah, that just didn't happen. It's just a joke, guys.
Yeah, I'm sure if
Look
you
at the
hang out
cameras.
on the wrong parts of the internet, you can get there. I'm looking at you, 4chan. But
Oof.
but like, yeah, just don't.
It's just unnecessary.
All right.
And then so
Yeah.
nameless adult walks up very
Yeah.
kindly.
I think he's officially credited as witness protection agent. So that's that.
Yeah. Jared's presumably homeschooled. Just
Oh,
a point of note.
currently. Yeah.
At this point in time.
Yeah,
so
but
Stranger walks
Odyssey doesn't do episodes about homeschoolers because the one time they did, everyone hated them.
Did they really?
That's one of their only, like, this episode was never aired again. Is like Officer Harley. I've never listened to it. And episode about homeschooling where they were like, parents were like, hey, we should have a homeschool character. And so they made one and did an episode. And then parents were like, no, that's horribly stereotypical. Get rid of it.
I feel like I did hear that.
It might be on the lost episodes. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I've heard it. I think. That's oh my gosh, yeah. We don't talk about it, even though that's like 90% of our demographic, which is very odd. I don't understand how they managed to screw that up. Maybe they'll try again.
Maybe they have.
Like 15 years removed. out of a 30-year show. Actually, probably even longer than that, because I think it's way, way back in the beginning, if I remember it correctly. Anyway, so this stranger comes up, very weird voice, and is like, "Oh, hey, Jim." And they're like, "What?" Like, "This is Jared." And he's like, "Oh, well, he has been known to tell a few whoppers, hasn't he? It's time to go." And I was just like, oh my goodness. I haven't heard a lie seriously be referred to as a whopper. Like, oh boy.
Yeah, that was weird. And then
Very unnecessary.
So he gets carted away, and Mandy is like, was that Jared's dad? To which Sarah's like, no, because she's his neighbor and would know what his dad looks like.
Yeah.
Continuity, guys.
Very nice. Very nice. Well,
Double thumbs up.
Yeah, I love it when the universe does that. That just, I love that.
So then they go to sleep.
Yeah.
Wake up the next morning.
Yeah, and then so he says before they leave to meet him at the cave.
Yep.
And so the next morning they're like, oh, we should do this. So they meet him at the cave. The cave is empty. Sarah says, "Is this the right cave?" And I audibly just groaned very loudly, which is, given the public setting in which I was listening to it, caused me a very large deal of embarrassment. Sorry, lady on the bike next to me. Anywho, Mandy sees the human tracking tracks on the floor, which is also
adult
very
footprints.
impressed. Yeah.
Oh, and the slight breeze in the cave is so good. I love the audio engineering in the show.
And you can hear the crunch of the loose little cave soil.
So they then go to, then they're like, I guess he's gone. And then they're like, I guess we'll look for the house.
Yeah, and so they go to the house. That's when we get the situation with the chain link fence. And they're like, how did he get through there? And they're like, well, if he could, we could. And so they do. And so they find a note in the box, in a loose floorboard, in his room. Yep. And it's written in code.
Yep.
And Mandy
they were
recognizes
told
it as in code.
he told them that he had he said his bedroom's in the northwest corner of the house, and under the floorboard there's this thing, and they know what the northwest corner of the house is because
they might as well. Well, maybe they at least had a compass. They were alone in the woods.
Andrew has points, guys. Sometimes it happens.
Maybe. So they find it. Mandy recognizes as a code that they used to use when they were younger, and so they...
It's the code he passed around when he was concerned about the adult revolution. So he gave all the kids this code.
Was that in an episode?
I don't think that was in an episode.
There's reference to
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was something that I had forgotten about.
No.
But yeah.
No, it's not.
Oh, what a delightful thing. He's such a good character. He's always been such a good character. So they get back to Whit's End. They tell Whit about all this, and then
of course.
Yeah, of course. He is God. And then they decode the letter, and Mandy comes in and she's like, was it moved again? Beware Andromeda.
Yep.
And then I think that's where the episode comes out.
Yeah, they mention out the book trope, or the fact that it was in a book.
Yeah.
Which gets Whit very interested. And then it ends with him saying, you hear Whit on the phone with someone saying, have you ever heard of Andromeda? Well, I'd like you to look into them. Breaking out some spy connections.
Let's go.
John Avery Whitaker, spy.
And God. And also a spy. And Albert Einstein.
And focus on the family.
And a spy. Yeah, and so then it cuts to the outro where Chris is kind of reintroducing Jared's character, which is again really interesting how they do it because it's completely different from normal. And so they play a bunch of old clips where Jared's a kid.
It does make sense to some extent though, because it's 2 years after it.
Yeah.
And unlike most times when they bring a character back, there's a lot riding on you knowing who the character is.
Yeah.
And I think they do a good job of establishing it in intro in the episode. Mm-hmm. But then they're just like, also, let's talk about the times where Jared's maybe stretched, the truth in the past.
Stretched reality, yeah.
And they just play a bunch of it. And then we get Chris with the sickest roast of all times.
Yeah.
Where she then goes, now let's play the time when let's play clips of the times when he was level-headed and told the truth.
Crickets. Literal crickets.
Literal crickets. And then we cut to the credits.
Yeah.
It's such a burn.
Like, oh boy. Which, again, is very interesting because, spoiler, he's telling the truth. Also, but they, totally set it up to be like, maybe he shouldn't be, and, maybe we shouldn't take it seriously.
Yeah, but I don't think they hit us too hard with that. I think it's I don't know. Write into us if this is your first time listening, and let us know what you think of Jared.
Yeah, and so then it cuts out, and any closing thoughts for you on the episode?
I just like the self-contained.
It is really nice. I thought like even the logical fallacies in it, I really don't feel like take away from the episode. I really enjoyed the characters. Obviously, like Jared, I said I really like him. I think Mandy and Sarah are. It's nice to have some female characters that are like, you know, actively involved.
Yeah, I've always liked Mandy a lot.
Yeah, I've always liked Mandy too.
Sarah, I don't have a strong connection to.
Well, she was always younger.
She's more of a bit player.
Yeah.
And
but like Mandy, there's some serious like character development in her earlier episodes.
Yeah. No, there's some stuff here where I was like, clearly like the camping trip should have been Mandy and Liz.
Yeah.
But they wanted Sarah to there as the connection of being Jared's neighbor and whatnot. And I don't think that was a bad call. It was just kind of like, there's a couple points in which I was like, in this episode, Liz is played by Sarah.
Yeah,
like,
basically, yeah.
Cal is played by Jared.
Right. Yeah, they are. There's a lot of parallels. And I don't know if that's intentional, if that's like really good writing or really bad writing.
Yeah.
If that's like...
I think a lot of it is just like, we have to keep Mandy as the timid one, which means that whoever's with her needs to be bold.
Yeah.
And while that would normally be Liz, this episode we have Sarah.
Yeah. And I think that's important.
Yeah,
and also
no, I don't think it's bad at all.
Also, did they tell their parents, or was there just this awkward car ride home where they're like, how was the camping trip? I'm like, oh, we braided hair and found a tree swing.
And ate a lot of marshmallows.
And went in a cave.
And didn't go in quicksand.
No quicksand. They don't have that here.
But yeah, that's a good point. But I feel like if they're telling wit, they probably had to have.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, they don't mention that.
So yeah, so that is more or less the episode. We've, covered everything.
All the points, yeah.
It's been a little while since we plugged stuff. What do you got, Andrew?
Well, as always, I have the Andrew Sabo podcast that I haven't put up an episode in quite
9
some
weeks.
time. 9 weeks?
I'm not counting.
Jeez. I really do need to. I'm going to say this here, so I can't back out of it. I'm starting a new project. It doesn't necessarily have a name, but I'm going to go through the Scrubs soundtrack song by song and just plug where it fits in with the show. Scrubs is my favorite show, and I really like how the song plays into the plot. It just punctuates the emotions of the episode really well. So I'm really excited to go through that. A lot of my friends really like it, so it probably won't be only a solo project. And with Christmas break coming up, I really do hope to get another episode of the Andrew Sabo podcast up. At Andrew Sabo on Instagram and Spotify. Just made a new playlist called Groovy Feels. There you go.
Nice. So listen to that. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
There's an Andrew Sabo Scrubs podcast coming.
Yeah.
So, combining two of Andrew's favorite things.
Here's the name. It's going to be called My Soundtrack. There you go.
3 of his favorite things, even. Scrubs, music, hearing his own voice. On my end of things, we've got Redbox reviews, as always, preferably on Instagram, but also Tumblr and Twitter. You do you. And then also, Christmas playlist has come out very recently. It's called That Time of Year Again. It's on Spotify. It's a lot of alternative bands doing Christmas tunes. So if you're into that, check it out. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
WadFam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Cooperative. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Episode 9, Strange Boy in the Strange Land, was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Sabo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us next time for more of the WadFam Chalk Pod.